Hey everybody, it is 7:59, so we're right on time for our nightly chat about fostering emotional health in kids. For those who may not have seen the other videos in this series so far, I do strongly encourage you to go back because the pieces kind of build on one another. They can all be viewed individually. You'll still get a lot of great information, but putting all the pieces together helps give you a more well-rounded concept of how we can foster emotional health in our kids. And really, emotional health, mental health, those are some of the most powerful tools that we could ever give our kids. So I invite you to watch the full series and to continue on with us each night around 8 o'clock and learn. Okay, if you're jumping on live, make sure you say hello. Hey, Katie, how are you? If you're watching the replay, make sure you say replay so I can come back and give you kudos for checking in on your own time. Okay, so tonight, here we go. I'm talking about a secret weapon. And this secret weapon has immense benefits for your kiddos. On the physical side, the physiology body side of things, this secret weapon can reduce their stress hormones. The stress hormone that most people are familiar with, besides adrenaline, is cortisol. And this weapon can decrease cortisol in a person's body by up to 23%. This weapon will improve sleep. It will decrease blood pressure and even out heart rate variability. It will improve the immune response and boost the number of white blood cells in one's body. On the psychological side of things, this weapon improves mental resilience, so being able to kind of bounce back from traumatic or upsetting events. It lowers the risk of depression by more than 25%. It increases empathy. It reduces aggression. And it increases self-esteem. Hey, Kara, welcome. So, what do you think my secret weapon is? What are we going to be talking about tonight? Facebook has a weird delay, so, I'll give you a second. What is that secret weapon? Somebody's got to make a guess. Fair enough, Kara. Sounds like a wonder drug. That's what Katie's husband says. It kind of is, except it's not a drug. It's a really, it's a simple concept, but it's complex to use. We're talking tonight about gratitude. It's not laughter, but that's a great guess, Katie. Great guess. Okay, so gratitude. Why are we talking about that when we're talking about emotional health in our kids? Because gratitude is the piece, it's the glue that holds it all together. Oh, there is some sort of truck running in my living room right now. Good over there? Got a thumbs up. We're fine. Okay. It's the glue that holds emotional wellness together. It is the piece that if you can teach all the emotional wellness skills that you want, but without also fostering gratitude, those skills have a harder time sticking, and kids have a harder time accessing them in the hard times when they really need them the most. So our little toddlers, our guys who they're so ungrateful for everything we do for them. It's so true. But the more that you foster gratitude, the more they'll have the perspective to understand and be grateful. And it won't be in huge ways. We will always be the scapegoats for the problems, the I hate yous, the you're unfairs, the stop talking to me's. Those are still going to come at you. But what you're doing is short-term, frequent, repeated exposure to gratitude so that long-term big picture they have the benefits that come along with it. So and we'll talk about how we can make them more grateful for the things we do for them in just a little bit. So toddlers and preschoolers are pretty egocentric, meaning they don't really have the brain power to consider others. They think about themselves. They are the center of the universe as far as they're concerned. And they don't do that because they're trying to be brats or jerks. Like, that's just literally how their brain works. They have no understanding that their actions are affecting you and affecting others. And they have no concept that they are not the reason that everybody exists. But about 15 to 18 months, which is pretty young, still a pretty young toddler, they can start to grasp the early concepts that lead to gratitude, like sharing, or when somebody gets hurt, like my 2-year-old right now, if you say, owie, he lays his head on your chest and says, sorry. So that's an early sign that he's developing gratitude, but more than that, an understanding that he is not the center of the universe. As much as he's the center of my universe, he's not the center of the universe. So gratitude in kids is important for all of those health benefits that I listed at the beginning of this video, but it also improves optimism, it improves school engagement and engagement with extracurricular activities and hobbies. It increases empathy. People who regularly tune into gratitude are measurably 25% happier than people who don't. And I think that's a really big deal. You know, it's easy to say, oh, I want my kids to be happy, but we don't really know what that means or how to get there. And gratitude is a great tool to do that. When we start talking about gratitude in teens, especially, they're more engaged in school, they have higher grades, they have lower rates of depression, and they're less materialistic, which are concepts that I want in my teens. Do you want your kids to be like that? You know, I think teens these days get a really bad rap. I think it's easy to say they're all just a bunch of materialistic, you know, blah, 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 millennial kids, and they're not. They just have a view of the world that is not quite fully developed. But we can still get them to see outward and understand how they affect others. Kara wants teens like that. Me too. So how do we create this? How do we get there? There's a couple of easy steps. How many bullet points did I make here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 ways to get your kids to be more grateful and to begin to internalize gratitude. It's easy to be like, you know, tell me what you're grateful for today at Thanksgiving, but how do we internalize it and use gratitude on a day-to-day basis to improve our emotional wellness? Step 1, be mindful with your kiddos. And I have to admit, pot calling the kettle black here, I'm not always good at this one. What I mean by being mindful with your kids is when they are trying to get your attention, number 1, listen as often as possible. It's so easy to think, oh, that's not important. Who cares? That's just silly kids things. But those are the things that are really important to them right now. And so if you're constantly shutting down the little things, I don't want to talk about it, that's boring, that's annoying, who cares? Then when the big things become truly big things in the grand scheme of the world, they don't have the trust developed with you to come to you for those things too. So while your, 15th princess picture of the day may be like, oh, great, honey, and you just kind of want to tune out and be like, yeah, I see it. The more we can plug into our kids, the more they understand that they're important, but that it goes 2 ways. Especially with our little guys, our toddlers, our preschoolers, getting down at their level. And that's when we're talking in a conversation, when we're giving praise and encouragement, and especially when we're giving discipline and redirection. Think about it. If you have somebody standing over you doing this, you tend to kind of shrink and you feel less safe and secure. And the message that they're giving you kind of goes out the window a little bit. Whereas if someone comes right to your eye level and gives you that same message, no matter if the tone hasn't changed, the volume hasn't changed, just being at your eye level can make a huge difference. Same thing for our kids. Get down, kneel down, pick them up, set them on the counter, whatever you have to do. If it's really important, make sure you're eye level with them. And the other thing this is the one I'm really bad at, you guys, put down your phone. Make sure that they have your full attention as often as possible. I admit I'm totally the mom that's like trying to work and scroll Facebook and respond to emails like, I'm having quality time with my kids right now because I have to multitask. I'm busy. We're working moms. We get that. And yet, if we can make an effort in ourselves to put down our phones a little bit more often, then we're modeling to our kids that that's what they need to be doing for others too. Number 2, support your children's autonomy. We talked a lot about autonomy and control last night, decision-making, power, all of those kinds of things. Giving children a chance to make those decisions and have control for themselves helps them appreciate the value of decision-making and appreciate the value of consequences. That way they can understand that when you say things, you mean them for a reason, and you're not just saying it to be a nag. Katie says, I was just thinking about that tonight. I had my phone in the playroom while she was reading a book. Instagram is so much less important than her. It's so true. And yet we all do it. It's human nature. It's the way our society runs. We are tech-based, and there's nothing wrong with being tech-based. But the fact that you noticed it, Katie, and thought about that, that's a huge step. And I'm certainly not saying like stay off your phone all day long till your kids are in bed, because that's not realistic. But pick and choose the times that you can multitask and that you can really give them your undivided attention. My kids know for me that that's the dinner table as often as possible, unless I'm on call for a birth and a client thinks they may be in labor, something like that. But as often as possible, I try to not only keep my phone silent, but physically away from the table. So if I hear it, I don't have that automatic like pick it up response. I would have to leave the dinner table to go do that. Yes, Kara says we need to remember to unplug ourselves. Absolutely. That's essential not only for your kids, but for ourselves. And if you follow Sleep by Phoenix Family Birth, the new page that we're running, you'll learn a lot about that this week too. Step 3, praise strengths and effort instead of outcomes. Our default as parents is to say, good job, you did that. Good job, you completed it. Good job, you finished first. Good job, you got it done really fast. But switch that to, good job, I saw that you didn't give up when that got really hard. Good job, I saw that you shared that toy with your friend without being asked. So notice their strengths, notice their more altruistic actions and praise those. Be less focused on outcomes and more focused on effort. When I say praise strengths, I don't necessarily mean, oh my gosh, you are the best climber there ever was. I mean, wow, you're really good at climbing. I can see that you were very careful to put your foot in a safe place every time. Really focusing on those kind of small components that lead to the bigger strength. Does that make sense? Because there's a delay, I'm going to keep talking, but if that didn't make sense, let me know and we'll circle back. Step 4. Katie says, meet the Robinsons. They even praise failures just as enthusiastically as successes. Totally. This has become crystal clear to me having a middle schooler. You know, she's so used to being good at school, especially math. Like, it's always been her thing. I'm so great at math. I'm so good at math, Mom. It's so easy for me. Everyone else thinks it's hard and it's easy. And then she got her butt kicked this year in math. So rather than saying, yeah, you're having a really hard time with math and, maybe you're not studying hard enough or maybe you're just not doing well enough. It was, but you know what? What do you do when it gets hard? And she says, I raise my hand and I ask for help. That's what you need to remember about yourself is you didn't just give up and shut down and say, I suck at this. You said, okay, what can I do to understand better? And you reached out and asked for help. That is a critical life skill, and I'm so proud of you because it can be embarrassing to raise your hand in a class full of 30 other kids who are probably judging the crap out of you and say, I don't get it. So I'm really proud that you were able to stand up for yourself and ask for help. Those are the kinds of little pieces of praise that we probably don't necessarily think about. And if you heard someone say it, you'd be like, all right, whatever. But those are the pieces that really stick with our kids. Kara says, yep, she thinks back to our students. Absolutely. As teachers, we experience that on a daily basis, like the concept of grit and growth mindset, where we're not focusing necessarily on being the best or having the highest score. One of the things that I always did with my students, there's so many awards for high grades and great test scores and, those kinds of things. So I always made sure to do growth awards. Gosh, little Jimmy over here, he started the year at reading level B and he made it all the way to B reading level T this year. That's however many, I'm not doing the math in my head, that's 15 reading levels in 1 year. Great job, Jimmy. Like really focusing on the growth rather than how good you are in comparison to others, comparing to oneself. Katie says, I want to create an environment where it's safe to be wrong and make mistakes. 100%. 100%. That is absolutely critical and something that we have talked a few times about this week. Absolutely. I agree with you so much, Katie. Okay. Step 4. Say your gratitude out loud. If you have an older kid, you can start to introduce the concept of a gratitude journal. You can do that for yourself. I've made that part of my morning routine. I've fallen off track with my morning routine just due to client circumstances and such lately. But my ideal morning routine includes where I sit down. I have a little gratitude journal. It's only about yay big. And each day I write 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I'm going to be really honest. Some days it's that I have air in my lungs. I have to really dig deep to find something I feel grateful for if it's been a crappy day or something like that. I try to make things a little bit more, a little deeper than that, but sometimes you can't. And so really taking the time and effort, not only to think it, but to say it and to write it, because that solidifies and it gets you started for the day. With that gratitude in mind and that optimism already set up for your day. I did this with my kids on the way to school. We would either say affirmations where I would say, I am strong. And they would say, I am strong. I am smart. I am smart. They would echo back and forth. Or we would do gratitude. Tell me 3 things that you're grateful for today. This can start really, really young. As soon as your kids have verbal skills where they can kind of put 2 and 3 words together, they can probably respond to you about something that they're thankful for. If you break it down and explain to them, something you're really glad that you have, something that makes your day happy. It's going to be materialistic at first. Don't try to make it any deeper than that. They don't have the skill and you're just going to confuse and frustrate them. Let your 2-year-old be thankful for her Barbies. Let your 3-year-old be so thankful that he got new rain boots. That's cool. That's awesome. Celebrate that gratitude. Around 4 years old, though, they can start to move from things to less concrete acts. So they can start to understand kindness, love, caring, and those can work in. I'm thankful for people is kind of the next step. I'm thankful for when mommy gave me a hug when I broke my Legos. Those kinds of things. And then it just builds. You can do it in the car. You can do it around the dinner table. You can do it as part of your nighttime routine, your wake up routine. You can do it in the bath. Really, there's no limit to where and how and when you can get your children expressing gratitude, but the more often you do it, the better. Katie says, I have a long door mirror at work and I wrote attitude of gratitude huge across the top. I write 5 things in dry erase every day and then journal them before I erase. It improves my mood and my reactions to difficult situations so much. Important in my job. Yes. Yes. I also keep them on dry erase in dry erase on my mirror. There we go. English, not a thing tonight. I'm winding down hard for the day, you guys. Keeping it in dry erase on your mirror is a great way to do it. And I love that you said you took it from dry erase and then made it more permanent in your journal. That really solidifies that and keeps you mindful of your gratitude that day. That's fantastic. I have this weird whoop-de-doo going on. Sorry, y'all. All right. Step 5 to creating gratitude in your kids. It's really simple. Model it. Let them hear you express gratitude frequently throughout the day, every day. Katie says, I see myself behind them and that helps. I like that. I like that a lot. We often get stuck thinking gratitude means we have to say, I'm thankful for, or thank you. But gratitude can be worked in more subtle ways too. Aren't the colors in the sunset amazing tonight? Gosh, we are so lucky to have a sweet dog like Ari who loves to cuddle with us. So just, noticing out loud the things that bring you joy, noticing out loud the things that you're thankful for without necessarily saying I'm thankful for explicitly. Kids learn to pick those up. You're doing modeling in more subtle ways. Kara says, I'm going to borrow that KDD in my classroom. Yay! I love it when we can share ideas. That's exactly why I love this group. So doesn't need to be thank you, but modeling as often as you can in little ways. And the last tip, number 6, have kids help. So this goes back to the comment before of like, but our kids are so ungrateful for us. Chores are a really great way to instill gratitude in your kids in a way that they don't understand that that's what's happening to them. It's like a mind F. But it gives them responsibility and it helps them to appreciate how much work you put into the household. Now, when I say they appreciate it and they see, I mean, they're going to say, this sucks. I don't want to clear the table. I hate clearing the table. Why can't you clear the table? You don't have to do chores. Like, that's the pushback you're going to get because you have human children. So kudos to you for raising normal, healthy children. But really, in the subconscious and unconscious mind, that's filing that away. And it's going to be accessible to them in their sleep, which is going to solidify those neurons even more. And it's going to be accessible to them as they grow. They're going to learn the value of helping out around the house. They're going to learn the value of if you want something, you have to pitch in for it. That can mean an allowance comes with it. It doesn't have to. It can mean like rewards come with it. It doesn't have to. Chores could be like a whole other series we could talk about. But asking your kids to pitch in and help around the house is really important. And that can start so early. If your child is old enough to walk, they're old enough to have really simple chores. The youngest kiddos can take like a wipe with you or a wet paper towel and wipe down the front of the counter or the cabinet while you're wiping the counter. They can help, like once you fold their socks, they can put the socks from the folded pile into their drawer, assuming you put your clothes away on a regular basis. We tend to live out of clean laundry baskets because that's the boundary that I've set to make my life have balance. As they get a little bigger, they can take their own dishes from the table to the sink. 16 months, she helps with laundry and throwing things away. Atta girl. Love it. And so you can just kind of build on that. My 12-year-old insists that she has the most chores and the hardest chores out of any of her friends. And I don't think that's true because I've heard them talking about some things. But if that's the case, I don't feel bad about it because there is study after study after study that says having chores at home on a regular basis and having chores that increase in responsibility level lead to leadership and ultimately more money in your jobs, better negotiating skills, more gratitude. Imagine that. So you could go and look up the studies if you wanted to, but having chores is a really powerful way to instill gratitude in the long term. Rika picks up toys in the living room, puts dirty dishes on the counter. Yep, perfect. The other thing to keep in mind with chores and helping in general is that it's really frustrating when we get to that I do, me do stage, because we could have had that done in 4 seconds and it's taking them 4 hours. So things like, I want to wipe that bowl. I want to put the clothes away. I want to fold the towel. Man, you really have to resist the urge to step in there and be like, just let me do it. Just let me do it. So build time into your schedule. If you know you have to be out of the door at 7 o'clock in the morning, but your kid is in the me-do phase of getting dressed, make sure you're getting dressed 20 minutes earlier than you normally would. So rather than saying, no, we don't have time. Oh my gosh, we got to hurry up and get there. We got to do it. Like, just let mommy do it because we're in a rush this morning. Because then that becomes our pattern every morning. Instead, say, you know what? Great. Why don't you go ahead and get dressed? You're going to wear the blue shirt or the red shirt today. Great. Go right ahead. Give them a chance to try at it and struggle. If they put their shirt on backwards, does it really matter? Like, people know that 2 and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds are dressing themselves. No one's judging you for having their pants on backwards or their shirt inside out or their shoes on the wrong feet. Yes, thank you. Terrible 3s, totally. The 2s are frustration as language is developing. The 3s are frustration as a sense of longing for control is developing. And that's why 3s can be so much harder, is because now they have the verbal skills to argue, to somewhat reason, even though their logic doesn't always make sense, which increases our frustration and lack of patience. So that's why more people have a harder time with the 3s than the 2s. And the 2s are still pretty distractible. They can throw their tantrum, but it doesn't take much for them to get back on track, where 3s have the emotional capacity to stew on things and to hold them in and hold grudges. No, mommy, I do it. Yup. Every parent's favorite phrase. Katie says, patience, my biggest weakness. Mine too. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a parent who doesn't think that that's one of their biggest weaknesses, because having a kid tests your patience in ways that you never could have imagined. I don't care what you did in your life before, being a parent is a whole different level, if for no other reason than because you're in the trenches and you're always got that little voice in the back of your mind saying, what I do in this moment will affect them when they're 30. Like, don't fuck it up. Linda, listen, honey, totally. That kid he can negotiate with the best. He is a kid who has been empowered to have autonomy and decision making. And he's just so dang cute. So those are my 6 tips to creating gratitude and the reasons that we need gratitude in our lives. Questions? As always, if you don't have them now, you think of them later, or you're catching this on the replay, you can always drop a question. I do come back and answer them. Rika says, Mommy, I'm talking to you. That's funny. You probably say that to her. That's probably a parrot. My middle kid, Logan, things he comes up with. No, Mom, you apparently just don't understand the responsibility of that. What 5-year-old says that? I don't know. Mine. Okay, good, Kara. I'm glad you're feeling good. Perfect. What? Oh yeah, and he now all the time says, obviously, blah 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 blah. Definitely a mini you. That doesn't surprise me. I can totally see that in her. Awesome. Well, thank those of you, the 2 of you who tuned in live for tonight. Thank you so much. I've really appreciated the dialogue that we've had back and forth. If anything comes up for you later, you know how to reach me. For those of you on the replay, you can always drop comments here. You can private message me, or you can email info@phoenixfamilybirth.com if you want something to be a little bit more private. You can always, however you want to do it, I'm reachable. How can we teach our kids to show gratitude, not just speak it? Really great question. So kind of goes back to that praising, like how we praise the actions that they perform that demonstrate gratitude. So praise when they share of their own accord, praise when they give a hug, praise when they do something to help you, whether you asked or not. It makes me so happy. It's so helpful to mommy when you do that for me. When you throw that diaper away, that really is helpful to me. Thank you so much for doing that. So labeling it to show them, it kind of goes with that labeling feelings we talked about earlier this week. There's a lot of concepts that kind of just come by our peripheral throughout life that we don't realize we're absorbing until somebody really explicitly labels. And that increases our understanding and awareness so much. So those kinds of things. You can also, as they get a little bit older, you can do it starting young, but they may not grasp it quite as well. Have them engaged in a cause that matters to them. Take them to a food bank, or, if you don't have the time to dedicate to doing that, take them to donate food to a food bank or a food drive and talk about why we're doing it. We have so many great things. We have a home to live in. We have clothes every day. We have fresh food. There's people who don't have those things. So I'm really thankful that we have these privileges. And I think it's important that we help others who don't. So just kind of living that message and labeling it as often as possible. Is that helpful? Does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Volunteering, yep, totally. And get your kids interested in a cause. If they're really into animals, find a charity for animals that you like, the values align with you, and either maybe do a bake sale or a garage sale with a little donut stand or something and have them send the money in. We did a coffee at a garage sale, coffee and donuts, and we sent the money to Phoenix Children's Hospital because our son had been in the NICU, or not Phoenix Children's, sorry, Carden Children's Hospital. Our son had been in the NICU, and so my daughter was like, I want to raise money for that hospital, and that was her way of doing it. Yeah, choosing toys to give to other kids. Yup, things that make sense to them, and that grows as they grow. Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I have a call set up at 8:30 to help a mom who needs help getting her kiddo to sleep. So I'm going to jump off and go take care of that phone call. But thank you again for joining me tonight, and I'll see you tomorrow night around the same time. Bye.